You're listening to Investify, preaching financial independence and assisting investors to achieve a more flexible and free lifestyle through smart financial planning and real estate investing. If leaving the corporate world and jumping into this thriving industry is what you desire, tune in and listen to stories of like-minded individuals who made the leap to financial independence. Equip yourself with the right tips and tricks to start your real estate journey, making active or passive ventures that are highly profitable and rewarding.
What's going on, everybody? You are listening to Investify. My name is Craig Curlup, aka the Fi Guy, and I'm here with my co-host, Miss Allie Garcet. What up, Allie?
What's up, Craig? How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm excellent. Doing really well.
I'm pretty jazzed up after this interview, not gonna lie. Mr. Rod Khleif, who many of you may have heard of. He's quite well known in the real estate and the multifamily space, and yeah, he talks all about his story, a lot about mindset, gives tons of advice. I think it's a really good episode.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to be having a TED Talk soon. He has his own podcast, and he gives away an awesome code for you guys, for the listeners here. So stay tuned, and that code is spelled ALI.
I was gonna say, I'm sure you love that code. Awesome. Well, guys, if you haven't already, please leave us a rating and review on the show. If you like what you're doing, if we like what you're hearing, please let us know by leaving a rating and review. And with that being said, let's bring Mr. Rod Khleif onto the show. This episode of Investify was brought to you by the Fi Team, a team of investor-friendly agents that service all 50 states. If you are looking to house hack, to invest, grow your portfolio, and want a true investor-friendly agent on your side, go to thefiteam.com and click Get Started, and we can't wait to have a good conversation with you. Rod Khleif, welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing today, dude?
Awesome, brother and sister. Usually I say brother, and there's two people here. Yeah. I'm fantastic, and I'm looking forward to having some fun with you guys today.
Yeah, we're looking forward to learning from you, man. We've been listening to your stuff now for a while, but like any other guest we have, we always like to hear about where it's at from the beginning. And so, why don't you kind of take us through your story of how you started in real estate and where you're at today?
So I'm going to go way back. I was born in the Netherlands. Think wooden shoes and windmills. Ended up in Denver, Colorado. We immigrated with my brother Albert, my mother's Vansha, and we really struggled initially. I remember shopping at an expired food store. We ate expired food, believe it or not. And we went to a day-old bread store before they had all the preservatives in the breads. We did that. I remember drinking our cereal in the morning with powdered milk because it was cheaper than real milk. And, we wore clothes, hand-me-down clothes from the Goodwill. I wore them until I was 14. And I lied about my age at Burger King because I was tall and got a job flipping burgers so I could buy my own clothes. And, I'm sure you've got listeners may have had it harder than I did, but I knew I wanted more. And thankfully, my mom had an incredible work ethic. So she babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. And she was a bit of an entrepreneur with her babysitting money. So she, we always had a house full of kids, and she invested in the stock market successfully and IPOs. But she also invested in real estate. And her first real estate acquisition was a house directly across the street from us. When I was about 14, she paid about $30,000. And then when I was 17, she told me she'd made $20,000 in her sleep that it had gone up in value in 3 years, $20,000. And I was like, what? You made $20,000? You didn't do anything? Screw college. I'm getting into real estate. So I actually got my real estate broker's license right when I turned 18. Back then you could do that with education. They got smart. Now you need some experience to have your own office and be a broker. But I was a broker, and I was smart enough to go work for another broker. I'm still living at home. But my first year in real estate, I made about $8,000. My second year, maybe $10,000. But my third year, I made over $100,000, which back in 1980, before either of you two smiling folks were born, was a lot of money, okay? And so what happened between year 2 and year 3 that caused me to 10x my income? Well, what happened was the broker I was working for, I was dating his daughter. I'm not stupid. So I was dating his daughter, and And he taught me about the importance of mindset and psychology, and how really 80 to 90% of your success in anything is mindset and psychology. Only 10 to 20% is the real estate stuff we talk about on our show. It's the do, and it's the keep doing. It's the pushing through fear and limiting beliefs, and or maybe getting uncomfortable. You know, we all know the comfort zone's a nice warm place, and we also know nothing freaking grows there, right? So anyway, I met him. Fast forward to today, I have owned over 2,000 houses that I rented long-term. I own thousands of apartment units now. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you might say, wow. And I said, wow. And it's $8,300 an hour if you want to check, because of course I did. And I got a head so big that I could barely fit it through a door. I thought I was a freaking real estate god. And you know, when that happens, God of the universe will give you a nice little smackdown. Well, that was 2008 and 9. I lost $50 million conservatively in 2008 and 9. And so what I'm known for talking about is the mindset it took half $50 million to lose in the first place. And probably more importantly, the mindset it took to recover. I mean, there were people that killed themselves both in 08 and 9 and in the Great Depression for losing less comparatively. And so happy to drill down on that for a few minutes with you guys if you like. Yeah.
I want to first start, obviously I want to start first of how did you first make that $50 million? But before that, let's go back to kind of like your mom and kind of like, let's go back to your childhood and kind of how you think that shaped who you were, right? Because it takes one thing to work hard, right? I mean, you can go flip a million burgers at Burger King and work hard. Your mom worked hard, but how did you also couple that with working smart?
Well, listen, I knew I wasn't going to get rich working at Burger King. I think it was like in the $3 an hour range. I'm not exaggerating. But I just knew I wanted it, and I will tell you, it starts with goals. I did goals subconsciously when I was a kid. And, it's interesting. I don't know if you've ever heard of the book or the movie, The Secret, about the law of attraction. I remember when and if you haven't, you should watch the movie. It's very, very powerful. It's on Netflix, I'm sure, but I gave away 2,000 copies of that DVD, The Secret, when it came out, because it was like everything I did up through the years. Like, I would get pictures of the things that I wanted. And I'll give you some examples of this. When I first got into real estate, I got this four-door Granada, this Ford Granada, piece of crap. But I figured I had to have a four-door to show houses, right? Okay. But the guy I worked for had two Corvettes, and he let me take his daughter out in one. I'm like, holy crap, this is amazing. So I got a picture of a Corvette out of a magazine. This way before the internet. And I put that Corvette on the visor of my piece of crap Granada. So every time I sat in the Granada, there was that Corvette. Within a year or two, I got a Corvette. I'll give you a couple more examples. Please know this is not me bragging. This is just to illustrate the power of this, okay? This is back when the TV show Magnum PI was out. Do you remember Tom Selleck? And he drove this, probably don't, it's before your time. He drove this Ferrari 308, okay? It was a gorgeous freaking Ferrari. And I'm like, oh my God, it's the first time I saw an exotic car. So I got a picture of that actual car, put it on the visor of my Corvette. Within a year or two, I had a Maserati, looked just like it. Last example, I'm the guy that always wanted a Lamborghini, okay? I had posters in my room growing up, with the girls in the bikinis and all that crap. And what's interesting is my son collected models of cars. When he was 9 years old, he had about, 20 or 30 of these cars. In fact, they're right behind me in my attic in this building. And he had a model of the exact same. Wait a minute. Do I have it here? Yes, I do. Hang on. Here's the model of the exact same color and style Lamborghini that I ended up getting, which I wrecked, just about killed myself. But anyway, so that's it. It's getting clear on what you want and why you want it. For example, and this is how you get something going and how I recovered from losing everything. I reassociated with my goals, but to get started, you got to have goals. If you come to one of my boot camps, and I'll give your peeps a hell of a deal if they want to come to one in my Orlando in September. But if you come to one, the first thing we do is goal setting on steroids. How do you get anything if you don't know what it is? You got to know what it is you want. You've got to create that burning desire, and you got to know, more importantly, why you want it. And so, Zach, before I forget, I do a goal setting workshop every year on New Year's Day. And if you go to rodslinks.com, again, rods plural, linksplural.com, it's at the bottom. And there's a guide you can download. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. Yeah, but here's the sad reality, guys. People spend more time planning a freaking birthday party than they do designing their lives. This is designing your life, right? And so, again, if you're driving, text the word links to 72345. And there's a bunch of free resources there on multifamily as well. But do the goal setting. Have your spouse do it. If your kids are over 10 years old, have them do it. Okay, it's so freaking powerful. Anyway, I digress. But that's that's the first piece. You've got to create that burning desire and hunger, and that's how you push through the fear. That's how you push through the limiting beliefs and get uncomfortable. And that's how you get up when you get knocked back down.
So how do you, there's one thing to create that burning desire and to create that lifestyle design that you're talking about, but how do you keep it? Right, it's easy to go to a conference. It's easy to listen to you on a podcast and have it for a couple
discipline.
Weeks.
Let me finish. I got a couple more. Let me kind of get on my soapbox for a few minutes, okay? Because I've got several pieces of this. So it starts with goal setting. You got to know what you want. Then you have to make a decision. And I don't mean dip your freaking toe in the water. I don't mean 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I mean it is done, okay? And so a great example. By the way, Latin root for the word decision means to cut off. It means you're cutting off any opportunity to escape that decision. A great analogy would be if you're going to attack the island in battle, you're going to burn your ships because you're taking their damn ships home. That's a freaking decision, okay? It's done, all right? And then once you do that, you're committed. You're like a train on a track. If you're just interested or dip a toe in the water, you're going to get knocked off track. And then once you're committed, it's no longer a dream, it's a freaking outcome. And I'm going to tell you, motivation will get you started, but it's that commitment and that discipline that'll bring you home, okay? And so once you've made that decision, you've got to take that first step. And, I remember when in between year 2 and year 3, when I 10x my income, I started knocking on the doors of people that are in foreclosure. And I would either list their houses or I'd buy them. And I ultimately bought 500 houses in Denver. And don't get me started on where I'd be if I still owned those damn houses. I would be netting, bottom line net, $1 million a month. Seriously, no exaggeration. But I bought them to buy, houses here in Florida. And I tell the story that I never would have met my wife if it hadn't happened. And although we just broke up, I still tell that story because she's a beautiful soul. We're friends. We're very, very good friends. But anyway, that's the truth of it. I never would have met her, and I would still give it all up again to have that experience with her. But it starts with that first step. Dr. Martin Luther King said, you take that first step in faith and the next step will be revealed. Lao Tzu said, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, but you got to take that step. And sometimes it's the biggest step of your life. And, we both have analytical people that listen to our podcasts, and you know who you are, and I love you, and you know how you have to check off every single box before you make a move. Listen, you can't do that if you're going to succeed. You're never going to make it happen. You don't have to see the whole path, okay? I'm going to give you an analogy. If this is you, if you get caught in analysis paralysis, you can drive all the way across the United States at night with your headlights only seeing 60 feet in front of you, and you'll make it. Other people have made it before you. Now, you may have some obstacles, but you can do it. It's the same way with any goal, okay? If it's going to be to buy real estate, to buy multifamily, whatever it is, but you got to take action and make it happen. You can't just assume that you're going to know the whole thing before you get started, because you're not. Okay. And I'll tell you, I see it with my students. I'm going to brag for a minute. So I've got coaching students. I've been teaching 5 years. They now own somewhere between 170 and 180,000 units. Okay. That we know of. We're doing a count. Super proud of that. Okay. And it's because, I'm kicking their butts and motivating them, pushing them, because that's my whole mindset stuff. But I see it with my students where it's the law of the first deal. They don't have one. It's 4 months in. And then that first one, it's the scariest. It takes the longest. It's the most stressful and everything else. And then they get one, and they say, I know they have 4. I'm like, what the hell just happened? And because they realize it's all between their ears, right? So here's the thing I want to tell you about this. This life is not a dress rehearsal, okay? If you are fearing failure, fear regret much more. There was this nurse in Australia, hospice nurse. So she took care of patients when they were about to die. And she asked them a question, guys. And the question was, do you have any regrets? And she wrote a book about it, something like the 5 regrets of dying. And you know what the number 1 regret was? It was not living the life I could have lived, living someone else's life, not doing what I know I'm capable of. I can't think of anything worse than that. So listen, if you're going to fear something, fear being in the same freaking place you are right now 2 years from now, unless you absolutely love where you are right now, right? Fear that. Don't fear failure. We fail our way to success. That was a $50 million seminar. I call them seminars, okay? It was a big one. It was an expensive seminar, but it was a freaking seminar. And I will tell you something. I built 27 businesses so far in my career. I was shocked when I figured it out a few years ago. Several were tens of millions of dollars. I have 2 right now. We're tens of millions of dollars. Most spectacular flaming seminars, okay? We fail our way to success. I got to meet the billionaire owner of Spanx. I'm getting a little ahead of myself here, but Sarah Blakely, that holds all the stuff together. Ollie's not going to know what that is. We probably don't, but she started with $5,000 and she's a billionaire. She's in Forbes. And And she told me at a mastermind that we were at that her dad used to ask her and her brother once a week, what have you failed at? And I thought, what an awesome freaking question to ask your kids. Do either of you guys have kids?
No.
No?
Not yet.
No? Okay. Well,
No.
when you do, ask that question. So you can raise your hand and stop me at any point, but I want to talk about fear and limiting beliefs for a second. So what is fear? F everything and run. False evidence appearing real. I like to think it's face everything and rise, because I will tell you the most successful people on the planet have fear, or what we achievers call stress, but they push through in spite of it, right? And the people that aren't successful let the fear lock them up. And I'm going to tell you, if you're listening to Ollie and Craig here, you're a leader. And the world right now needs leaders more than ever. Don't get me started on the crap that's going on with politically and everything else. And so you've got to be very careful with what you bring in. You've got to stand guard at the door to your mind and not bring in the good stuff. Don't get caught up in the news, because it's all crap. You don't even know what to believe anymore. There's so much crap out there between social media and the news. And so you've got to be very careful what you bring in, so that and that's why the goals are so important. If you're locked in on your goals, you're not going to get caught with the noise and the fear. I remember in 2008 and 9, the news would say, real estate's going to be terrible for 10 years. Well, multifamily rents exceeded pre-crash levels within less than 3 years. But so fear, that's fear. Now I want to talk about limiting beliefs, and I got a great thing to show you on this. 1 second. So when I immigrated and I was 6 years old, I got thrown into school. And I didn't really have much of a father figure, and I found out what bullies were for the first time. So I got my ass kicked occasionally. And then my mom, proud Dutch woman that she is, thought it'd be a great idea to send me to school in these, and these are the actual freaking wooden shoes too, okay? And these leather shorts the Germans wear for Oktoberfest. So I got my ass kicked again. And then we had bullies at the end of my street, and she'd chase them off with a fly swatter when they chased me home. Next day, you can imagine what happened. And so I came up with this limiting belief system that I wasn't good enough. I used to ask myself, how can I show them I'm good enough? Which of course presupposed I wasn't. And so a lot of people have these limiting beliefs, and that some of it's subconscious. For me, it was subconscious for a long time. I actually spent 20 years with Tony Robbins, and it was like my 6th event. I'm like, holy that's it. And I think I cried for like 30 minutes. But a lot of people are consciously aware of them as well. They don't feel like they're good enough, strong enough, analytical enough. That was another one of mine, analytical enough, and you're too young, I'm too old, I don't have enough time, I'm not smart enough, whatever it is. And there's a reason the acronym for belief systems is BS, because 99.9% of them are BS, but we believe they're real and they're not. So if you have one of them that you're consciously aware of, drag it out into the daylight. Look at it through your adult rational mind. Recognize that it's BS, and it will diminish and go away. I used to be afraid to raise my hand in front of 20 kids in class, and now I speak in front of literally thousands and thousands of people a year. My September boot camp, there'll be 1,200 people there. I spoke in front of 1,200 people 2 weeks ago at Ryan Panita's event. So, it diminishes and it goes away if you consciously look at it and recognize that it's BS. So the next piece is focus. Okay, I talked about as a leader, you gotta watch your focus. And so I'll brag again for a minute. So my podcast just broke 17 million downloads. Okay, and I'm using that as an illustration for something else. And I listen to 2 podcasts. One of them is Joe Rogan. The other one is Tim Ferriss. So I try to keep both sides of the aisle. I am definitely more on one side than the other. I'm going to tell you that. But I try to stay balanced as much as I can. And on Tim Ferriss's show, which to me is the dark side, but he interviews the best of the best in the world, okay? Like the best athletes, Michael Phelps, NBA, NFL players, best actors, Arnold and Jamie Foxx, Ed Norton, Hugh Jackman, billionaires like Ray Dalio, CEOs of the largest companies, Zuckerberg, so on and so forth. And he deconstructs their success. And I started to hear a pattern. Almost all of them meditate. What does meditation build? Focus, right? And I'll tell you something else. Through this time, it's so important that you direct your focus, because whatever you focus on gets bigger, both positive or negative. Like I was talking about the news. I get people that call me and say, how do I get out of student loan debt? And I'm like, wrong freaking question. How do you make so much money that debt's irrelevant? That's the right question. Again, what you focus on gets bigger. They asked Mother Teresa if she was anti-war. She said, no, I'm pro-peace, right? And I don't know about you guys, but I'll be sitting watching Netflix and my happy ass will be scrolling social media. And I'm going to tell you that kills your freaking focus because you're making these micro decisions every split second. Focus is important. The most successful people on the planet have the highest degree of focus. So that's a big deal as well.
Yeah, I want to just kind of, take it kind of to a little bit of your story, right? Of like when you started to realize this stuff, right? Now you're speaking kind of now in the past, like looking back, these are all the lessons and all the things that you've learned and gathered and what you teach people. Like, so how does someone like, that's maybe in the early days, right? Like, how do they take steps right now, like today, to do that, right?
Yeah, well, get your butt to my boot camp. That's number one. I'm just going to tell you that right now. You got to educate yourself. Let me put a plug in if you don't mind. It's 3 days in September in Orlando. It's not a big sales pitch. I talk about my coaching for 30 minutes. The rest of the time is full on drinking through a fire hose. Every aspect of this business. You've got to learn. You got to educate yourself, whether you learn from me or not, but you got to learn. And, we go through finding deals, evaluating them, underwriting them, financing them, raising all the money you need from them, syndication, joint venture, property management, on and on. I have 3 panels a day, billions represented by the panelists to answer questions. And I will tell you, and I'm sure you talk about it on your show here, if you talk about multifamily at all, is it's a team sport, and you're going to have to meet that team. You got to build relationships to do these larger multifamily deals. Now, my focus is larger. I don't know if you guys focus on the small stuff like duplex, triplex, fourplex, but if you go 5 units or higher, that's my realm. That's my world. Okay, so larger multifamily. Like I said, my students own somewhere between 170 and 180,000 units, and it's a team sport. So you got to play to your strengths as well. Because it's a team sport, there's a lot of different hats you can wear. You can be the person that finds the deals. You can be the one that underwrites them. You can be the one that raises the money. You can be the one that does the asset management, that manages the property management company after the fact. There's all sorts of hats you can wear. But you got to play to your strengths. Your strengths are your greatest assets. Don't try to maximize your weaknesses. Success comes much faster when you maximize your strengths and you align, you hire, or you partner for your weaknesses, which is why these live events are so important. And again, I don't care if you come to mine, but if you're thinking, I'm going to tell you, let me just say this. You need to pick your vehicle right now to capitalize on what's coming, because what's about to hit the fan. It's already hitting the fan. I mean, there's so many deals that are going to come down the pike. And so you got to pick your vehicle. Is it going to be buying businesses? I think there's going to be great deals buying businesses. Is it going to be buying single family homes? Is it going to be buying multifamily? If it's multifamily, get to my boot camp. So if you want to come, it's at Rod's Links, and let's just use the code OLLIE, okay? ALI. Use that code OLLIE. You come for $197, okay? $200 to come for 3 days of training, and it's not a sales pitch, okay? And if you don't love it, I'll give you a freaking $200 back. I don't mean like it. I mean freaking love it. So let me just tell you this. I spend a lot of time on mindset. You come, you will laugh, you will cry, you will leave so freaking juiced you won't know what to do with yourself, okay? So it's why I can only do one a year, because I have this energy the entire time at that event. But if you want to learn this business, for God's sakes, get your butt there. I will tell you the biggest, best, and I've interviewed, people with 20,000 units, 100,000 units, tons with 5,000 units. And the best partnerships I see are the ones that are an analytical person with an outgoing person, because this business is primarily empirical. It's primarily numbers. You get the numbers right and you've got somebody helping you build the relationships, you're off to the freaking races. Now, another thing, playing to your strengths. If you're playing to your strengths, you're going to love it, right? You never work another day in your life. And if you're loving it, you're going to be passionate, right? What's required to influence people? Passion. Okay, when you love what you do and they feel that passion, they want to work with you. They want to invest with you, sell to you, whatever it is. So when you love what you do, you have that passion, and success obviously requires the ability to influence. And that passion equals that ability to influence. That passion is the fuel. Okay, so don't settle, don't play small, figure out what juices you and inspires you and do that. It also breeds creativity and innovation, that passion, minimizes or even eliminates fear.
No, I just wanted to really echo the point of going to events and going to live conferences. I know that's where I saw an inflection point in my career, is when I started getting around people that investing in real estate was their norm, right? A lot of people here, a lot of people listening now, like you go and tell someone that you've got 5 or 6 doors and it almost sounds weird, right? Never mind thousands and thousands. And so, by attending events like Rod's, by attending all of the real estate conferences, you having 5 or 6 doors now you're kind of at the bottom, right? You want to play in a bigger pond, and that's how you grow and become a bigger pond.
Everybody starts there. People with thousands of doors, they all started with houses and plexes and whatnot. But you got to get in a group that wants more, that is playing in that field. You want to be around people that think what you think is hard is easy, right? And so, by the way, if you're interested in the boot camp, use the code Ollie, go to Rod's links. And the boot camp site is there. A bunch of free resources and books there, best in class books that are free, including my #1 bestseller on the floor here. You pay $6 or something, and we actually ship you this. The other ones are PDFs, but they're best in class. I mean, there's a book on asset management, book on how to find a partner, the questions to ask. There's on and on, how to hire a third-party property management company, and they are best in class books. I'm really proud of them. But peer group. So when I was losing everything in 2008 and 9, I was in Tony Robbins' Platinum Partnership. Okay. It's a mastermind, very expensive mastermind, like 130 grand back then. It's much more than that now. And I was around people that were killing it in the crash. Okay. I mean, they were thriving, and I was licking my wounds, and they're like, get up, you puss, 50 million schmillion, go make something happen. Now, who do you want to be around when the you-know-what hits the fan, right? That's who you want to be around. So you got to be very careful who you hang out with. And I will tell you, most people default to people they went to school with or people they work with. And those people with their own limiting beliefs and their fears, or, their comfort, or their fear of losing you, or fear of feeling humiliated if you succeed, they could hold you back, or they could break that fragile thread of your dream while it's just a dream. So be very, very careful who you hang with. Get in a group that wants more. Like I was talking about my warriors, my coaching students that own all those doors. Most of those are done between warriors. That's a group that lifts itself up. But you can go in your local environment, go to meetup groups, go to real estate groups, whatever, come to events like my event and meet people that want more out of life. And I'll tell you, if you've got these people in your life that are naysayers, sometimes they're family too, okay? Love your family, but choose your freaking peers, because, you want to be around people that want more, because a rising tide lifts all ships. You want to be around people that'll hold you accountable and encourage you and motivate you and not hold you back. Super, super important.
I love that. Yeah. We hope this episode is inspiring you to take action. If you're thinking about becoming a real estate agent or an agent who wants to join an investor-friendly team, just hit me up on Instagram at the Fi Guy, because we are growing our team in Denver, Seattle, San Diego, and Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, but also adding to our network in all 50 states. And if you didn't already know this, the Fi team provides a super supportive environment with one-on-one coaching, accountability, and ongoing training to help develop kick-ass, rock star, investor-friendly real estate agents. So hit me up on Instagram at the Fi Guy, shoot me a DM, and we'll set up a time to chat. Can't wait to chat with you. Real quick, Rod, how did you get from your, just you personally, how did you get from, selling, making 100 grand a year in 1980 to then having $50 million?
I just started buying houses. I'm like, why isn't everybody doing this? I was buying houses in Denver for 20 grand a pop, and I was renting them for 400, 2% rule. Forget the 1% rule. It was the 2% rule. Okay. And I bought 500 in Denver. I bought 200 in Memphis, biggest freaking mistake of my life. I bought 1,300 in Florida.
Were you using other people's money to do this, or how did?
Yep. Private money and loans. And I did joint ventures back in my 20s with partners. They put up the money. They signed on the debt. We split the deals 50-50. I was having them qualify for VA loans. There were VA foreclosures. They would sell to investors for 5% down, but they paid a 6% commission. Do the math.
Well, yeah.
They sold them for 5% down, and I told you I was a broker, right? They did a 6% commission. So they put up the money to fix them up. We split the deal 50-50. And it was a match made in heaven. These were foreclosures, believe it or not. Even FHA would sell to investors when I first got in the business for $500 down and finance those deals. And they were what do you call them? You could actually transfer those loans and let somebody assume them without qualifying back then. Okay. A true story. I was crazy, but I was like, why isn't everybody doing this? And I didn't know what I didn't know. I just went hog wild and just started buying. Buying houses for me is like freaking brushing my teeth. It's no big deal. And I got lazy. And when it all crashed, I had 800 houses in Florida. And by the way, I was at a 30% loan to value. People are like, oh, you were over leveraged. No, I was at a 30% loan to value and I still crashed and burned. And I'll explain why. I also had some apartment complexes, but it was the houses that pulled me down. And as I was telling you, I had houses from, Newport Richey, actually Hernando County, further than that, down to Bonita Springs and everywhere in between, 800 houses, and 2 hours each way. And so what happened is most of these houses were C-class houses, okay? You know, there's A, B, C, and D. A is brand new, D is the hood. Stay out of the freaking hood. Ask me how I know, okay? I had places in Denver that people got killed in. They sold crack and everything else, but stay out of the hood. But these were C houses, which is a step above D. But, you know, they're older. It's a tougher demographic. They're harder on it. So there's a lot of maintenance. Okay. Now, if I had maintenance at one of my apartment complexes, everything's the same. You know, you stockpile parts, plumbing parts, electrical parts, HVAC parts, locks, windows, whatever, and they're in and out in an hour. Well, if they had to go an hour one way just to get to the house, or an hour and a half, see what's wrong. Every house is different. Go find a Home Depot or a Lowe's where we have an account. It took all day. And these houses had a lot of maintenance, so they never really cash flowed well. But see, I thought, just like everybody thought a year ago, that this real estate market was never going to change. It was going to keep going like crazy. And that's why, you know, this smells like 2006 and 7 to me, which is why I believe I'm very, very bearish right now. I think we're going to see a reckoning, and with that, an incredible opportunity. And so, you know, but that's what happened to me. You know, just in cash flow, Florida has no state income tax. Property taxes are higher, impacts cash flow. I had properties in wind and flood zones, higher insurance, impacts cash flow. But the big thing was, the maintenance. And then the last thing was tenant demographics. I didn't pay attention to where people worked. If they had good credit and they could pay the rent and they paid a deposit, I let them rent, right? Well, I found out after the fact that I had a ton of contractors, plumbers, electricians, drywallers, painters, roofers, and that work fell off a freaking cliff. They didn't have work. So and by the way, to give you an idea how far it crashed, my portfolio actually went upside down. That's how far the values crashed here in 9 and 10. It was crazy.
And so the proper, because I always wondered, like, if you just held on through 2008, I felt like, you know, you'd be fine. But I guess the big
I would have been fine. I couldn't hold on. I mean, I had the black card. I was spending $100,000 a month. You know, I mean, I was rolling big and had, you know, but I couldn't hang on. I couldn't pay the mortgages because they weren't paying. And so, you know, it imploded, and I just threw in the towel, and it sucked because I mentioned the black card because my credit was freaking impeccable. And now my credit's back now, but, you know, I own thousands of units right now, apartment units, but it sucked for a long time. But it is what it is. So we talked about failure. I know we talked about failure. I also want to talk about gratitude, if you'll humor me, okay? Yeah. And just because it's so important, I will tell you, it's the most foundational emotion we have available to us. It makes us stronger when we face adversity. You know, it strengthens our immune system. Actually, it makes our heart stronger and lowers our blood pressure, brings us closer to our spirituality. But the reason I bring it up, it's how you attract everything you want into your life, okay? I most mornings I'll sit in my recliner and I'll just be grateful for the people in my life, you know, my ex-wife, my kids, my coaching students, my foundation. I'll just do gratitude for just a couple minutes, okay? But then I'll do gratitude for the things that I want as if I already have them, okay? And sometimes I'll get emotional being grateful for things I don't even have yet. And I know I lost some of you analytical ones on that, but this is how I had 50 million to lose and how I got it back. So ignore it at your peril is all I will tell you. It freaking works. But you could call it prayer if you want. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that in before we moved on to anything else.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that transition too. So you're in the dumps in 08, you lose 50 million, right? How are you handling that? Like, I mean, because you're not as mature then as you are now. So how did you handle that? Like, there had to have been some doubts. There had to have been, but
sure.
So you knew that back then?
Yeah, well, I was in the Tony Robbins environment. By the way, if you ever have a chance to see him, just freaking do it while he's still talking. Because, I spent 20 years following him around the planet. I was on his security detail for 8 years. And, which is why, because I love motivation. I love the energy of it. I love looking in the mirror and becoming a better father, becoming a better partner, becoming a better business person, becoming a better human being. And that's what you do when you look in the mirror at these events, right? And so I was blessed to be there, thank God. Peer group, like I just talked about, getting realigned with my goals and why I wanted them. Making a decision, get off your ass, quit feeling sorry for yourself, making that decision, taking the first step, going, making it happen, and playing to my strengths. I'm not analytical. So I aligned with somebody that was a CPA and So all these things I just said is what I did myself. But they are also the way to get started. It's not just the way to recover. I'm about to do a TED talk about recovery from a setback. I'm real close to finishing it. I'm going to do a TED talk, but it's about this very topic. But it works for, like I said, for recovery from a bad experience to just getting started and go kicking ass and make it happen.
Awesome. Yeah. Love that. Love it.
Before we finish, I do have something else I want to say, but you just let me know if you've got some questions before we wrap up.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to go back, and I wanted to start just kind of now. Let's talk from like 2010 onward, like in the recovery and what you did there and how you saw that opportunity. And you weren't scarred from real estate, right? You knew, even though you lost a lot, you knew to get back into it and get back on the horse.
I was scarred for a while. No, I was scarred for a while. I actually started a litigation support company where I was helping people save their homes. We did loan modifications. I actually built law firms in 5 states. Nobody had ever done it before. And we would use the law firms to stop the foreclosure, so we had time. And then I had a back office people of 60 employees doing loan modification. We saved thousands of families' homes, but I hated the business. Nobody's happy when they're losing their home. And we had to contend with the bar associations in these different states and everything else. And I sold the business a few years ago, and he is killing it now because there's a big glut of foreclosures because of COVID, that foreclosure moratorium that are coming down the pike now. And so he's killing it. He had me on a payout, and he paid me off like very quickly recently. But that's what I did is I regrouped, and that's what I built out of the ashes, because I was pretty soured. I lost 50 million in real estate, but then I realized I wanted to get back into it. So I started my podcast about 7 years ago. And I used to tell people, first episodes, you listen to first episodes or two, I'll say, I'll never sell you anything, because I just wanted to add value. Now I'm a freaking liar because I sell everything, courses, coaching, everything, but I never planned to, you want to make God laugh, you tell him your plans, right? But I hit 1 million downloads. I'm like, okay, knucklehead, you probably ought to do something with this. So I wrote the book, and I gave away 20,000 copies of the book for free, just to, build an email list. And now I still give it away for free, but you can get the physical copy at Rod's links. But I added value, and that's the secret. Like you guys are doing on your podcast, I'm sure you got a lot of positive feedback from people that listen, and I just learned to love it. I've got a wall in my other office with hundreds of thank you cards from people whose lives have been impacted by my work. And this is not ego, but I will tell you, I get love every single freaking day. I get emails, DMs, I get cards, I get gifts. I mean, it's addicting, because whatever you give, you get back 100-fold, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I love that. Totally. So yeah, let's keep moving on. So when did you start getting into like the big multifamily stuff, syndications and all that?
Pretty recently. I had some larger ones when I lost everything. The largest was 88 units, but I owned it myself. I didn't syndicate or anything. Well, with my brother, but I didn't syndicate or anything like that. But the syndicating we started back. About 5 years ago, actually, 5 years ago. Almost all of the 5,000 plus doors that I own are from students that brought them to me, and that's how I did it. And but I haven't done much in the last 18 months. I'm very, very conservative. I bought 2. One was 296 units in San Antonio. Another one was 145 in Nashville. And I will tell you, I looked where every single tenant worked to gauge recession resistance. Hit me once, shame on you. Hit me twice, it's Rod's fault. And so I've learned from my lessons. And a lot of these larger syndication deals, the way they work is you bring in investors, you offer the investors a preferred return, typically 6, 7, 8%, and then anything over and above that, they get that first, right? And then anything over above that gets split, and that split is typically 80, 20, 70, 30. But both of these last 2 deals I did were 50-50 because they were so good. I didn't have to adjust the returns, because it's all based on returns. How much cash on cash return you're going to get from your money invested, and then how much total return, which is called the internal rate of return. And so these were so good, I was able to do them at 50-50, but because I'm so conservative,
So the deals that you are still buying today, being that you are being conservative now, what other requirements or what else specifically are you looking for in those properties before you purchase them?
Yeah, good question. Well, the returns have to be there for sure. And I will tell you, anybody that is selling right now, you need to find out why, because this is not a time to sell. Okay. Like we've got LOI in on a big deal here in Florida, another one in Georgia. And that's called a letter of intent, an LOI. That's how you start the conversation with a seller or a broker, because you never want to do a contract yourself in this space. I've written hundreds of contracts, thousands actually, but I would never write a contract for a multi-million-dollar deal or even review one. It's all done by attorneys, and attorneys aren't free. So it starts with an LOI, or letter of intent. So we've got a couple of them out right now, and both of them have loans that are about to reset, and they are in deep doo-doo, okay? Because right now, you either have to sell or refinance. Sales are down 75% in multifamily year over year, first quarter of this year. And to refinance, you have to, if you've got an adjustable rate loan, underlying loan, like one of the deals I'm looking at, their rate now, right now is 8.5%. I'm sure when they got it, it was 3 or 4. Okay, so they are dying. Okay, and that loan's resetting in 3 months. And so, I'm looking for motivation, number one, because that'll impact price. I've got to prove that I have the sure. They want to see surety of close. They want to make sure the closing is going to happen, like in that case where they've got a loan that's coming due. And so that's going to be the big thing. It's not even going to be price so much. It's going to be proving that you have the ability to close. So that's a big one. And then, I don't want a C-class asset right now. There's A, B, C, and D, like we talked about. I don't want C assets. Here's why. That demographic is getting killed right now. I mean, I went to the grocery store the other day and I'm like, what do you mean $150 for this? I never buy my wife at the time did all that. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And the clerk is like, no, that's what it is. I'm like, how do people afford this? And she just shook her head. Those people are getting killed. Gas and inflation is killing them. And so that's going to impact C-class assets. So I look for, I look for a C asset if it's in a B area that I can convert to a B, or a B asset in an A area that can convert to an A. That's what I look for. And because that demographic can afford to live right now. But I'm going to tell you something. About 5 months ago, I saw an article. There are 20 million households behind on their utility bills. 20 million households, okay? And those, I promise you, that's the bottom demographic of the lowest income people, right? They're getting killed. A lot of them are using credit cards to pay everyday expenses. And so, we're headed for some pain. Donald Trump, love him or hate him, says it could be as bad as the Great Depression. That's a quote. Elon Musk said they're lying, a direct quote, they're lying. The crash is going to be much bigger than they say. So I'm telling you, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to tell you opportunity is coming. So like I said, pick your freaking vehicle. Whatever you're going to use, learn it as fast as you can. Get up to speed as quickly as possible, because you're going to be able to capitalize on it. It's already upon us. It's coming. We're seeing both the deals we're looking at have loans that have accelerated. To give you a little more background, the last couple of years, the biggest lenders in our space is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, okay? And they do what's called non-recourse lending, where if they foreclose, they only take the property. Well, there's also called bridge lending, okay? Which is like the hard money lender of the single family space. That's the bridge lenders are the equivalent in the commercial multifamily space, okay? They're very tough, very onerous debt. It's adjustable rate. But see, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac last couple of years lowered their loan to value. So like these last two deals I did were at 60% loan to value over the last 18 months. And they were both Freddie Mac long-term loans. Fantastic debt. But most operators used bridge debt to do these deals because they could get higher loan to value. And the higher the loan to value, the less money from investors, the higher the returns they could pro forma on their deals, if that makes sense. The less cash out of pocket, the better returns they could put on their pro formas for their deals. And so they do these bridge debt, adjustable rate, thinking that the rates weren't going to go up, and they're getting killed. Okay, they're literally getting killed. And so that's why there's going to be a reckoning. There's 1.6 trillion in commercial debt coming due by the end of next year. It's a train headed towards a brick wall. And so, again, not to scare you, but there's going to be bank failures, because a third of that debt is held by small and regional banks. There's going to be, unless they bail it out. In their infinite wisdom, they may print another couple $1 trillion and increase inflation and bail it out. Who knows? But if not, there's going to be a reckoning. So
this seems to be like a really big deal for the multifamily space. What's your thinking on the single
all asset
space?
Classes? Okay, all asset classes in commercial. Singles already getting killed, guys. In some markets, obviously Florida, you can't keep people away right now, but a lot of the markets, it's flatlined, and there's going to be deals there too. It's twice as much in a mortgage payment to buy now as it was 18 months ago. Twice as much, literally. And so that's got to impact sales. Now, the caveat though is there's still a great shortage of housing, because the people that have these 3% mortgages that they've gotten over the last few years, they don't want to sell, because right now it's 7, 8, 9%. I don't pay attention in the single family space, but I know it's not cheap. And so, that's why there's a shortage of housing. So that is a dynamic that comes into play. But at some point that the music's going to stop, because they'll reach a point where, they just raised the rates yesterday, as I'm sure you guys know. And they aren't going to start bringing them down till next year. No way. So, I figure it has to affect single family at some point. Elon Musk said that single family is going to follow, residential is going to follow commercial. I mean, that's a quote from him. He's a pretty freaking smart guy. So, I kind of listen to what he says. And again, that means opportunity, though. I just don't want to scare people. That means opportunity if you're not scared.
Yeah. So I will say I'll say a couple things here. When the tides are shifting, right? This is when all the scare tactics start coming in from the media, from everyone. That it's very easy to buy a house in 2020 because everyone was telling you to buy one. But if you're new,
what do you mean by scare tactics? What do you mean by that?
The media is saying, real estate has fallen 30, 40%. Every normal person around you is saying don't buy. But then, you hear a guy on the podcast saying buy, buy, buy.
Let me tell you what Warren Buffett says. Sorry, let me tell you what. Sorry to interrupt. I apologize. But I want to throw in Warren Buffett's famous quote, which is, "Be fearful when others are greedy." There's been a lot of greed these last few years, guys. I'm sure you know. But it also, the back part of that is be greedy when others are fearful, right? So it's a contrarian approach, and that's why I say there's opportunity coming. So I think that's the best answer to your question.
I was just thinking that as well. And so, but still, it's a lot easier said than done, right? And so, and the other part too to that question is how do you know when to act, right? Like you don't really know where the bottom is, right? And so, how do
you need to learn? You need to get up to speed. You need to educate yourself. So if it's going to be single family, go find somebody that teaches that. If it's going to be another asset class, go find somebody that teaches that. If it's multifamily, get your butt to my freaking boot camp. But learn it as fast as you can, because I'm going to tell you, once we're in the thick of it, it's going to be too late. When it really gets ugly, because you got to build relationships. You've got to learn it. You've got to have done it. You've got to have evaluated some deals. And by the way, if you use that code Ollie at Rod's Links at the multifamily, and I got to remember to tell my team that if you use that code, you also get my deal evaluator software for free, which is kick-ass, so you can evaluate a deal, and you get my document library, which costs tens of thousands of dollars. So I mean, for me to build. So I mean, it's a ridiculous offer, and so. But you got to get educated. If nothing else, go to YouTube University. I don't think you can do it there, but do something to get educated on whatever it is you want to do, because it's coming. That's my view.
Totally agree, man. I think education is always the first step.
So if you allow me to talk about something else for a moment that I don't want to end this thing without. Okay. So it's an important story, because I know you've got a lot of people that want to take action. They may have not taken action yet or whatever. And so I just want to give you a little story. It won't take but a minute. So when I lived in Denver, I always knew I wanted to live on the beach, and there's no beach in Denver, but I would visualize the palm trees and the sand and the surf, just like I do with my morning ritual with my goals. 20 years later, I built this $8 million, 10,000 square foot mansion on the beach. It's actually literally right across the bay behind me where I'm pointing right now. God's got a sense of humor. I lost that house and all the craziness. Now I've got a compound. I get to look at it every day. I love where I live now better though. But the point is, it's kind of funny. But anyway, this house was spectacular. So, 10,000 square feet, giant waterfall from the second floor balcony into the pool. You had to walk through the waterfall to get to the pool. Pools in magazines, big spiral staircase up to the middle. I owned the beach on one side, and I had my boats on the backside. It's called a Gulf to Bay, sliced through an island. And, a wine cellar, elevator. On the second floor, I had aquariums built around the staircase that cost me almost $200,000. So this gives you an idea. So 2 months after I moved in, I worked for this thing for 20 freaking years. 2 months after I moved in, I'm floating in the pool at night. I'm looking up at this testament to my ego, because really I built it to prove to the world I was good enough. Remember I said, how can I show that I'm good enough? To prove the world I was good enough. And I got depressed. And this is 2 months after I moved in. My family's inside sleeping. And I'm like, what the hell? How could I be depressed? I've just achieved a success like times 10,000. I had the boats and the jet skis and all the Maserati and the 2 Mercedes and all the stupid crap. And I was depressed. And there were several things going on. That's what I want to leave you guys with. One is, you should never achieve a big goal without having other goals lined up behind it, right? Like the good book says, without a vision, the people perish. You need a vision for the future. And I didn't know what I was going to do next. So that was number one. Number two is, it's never about the goals. You need the goals to create that burning desire and that hunger, so you go take action. But happiness comes from progress and growth. And so you have to celebrate your progress and growth. And by the way, if you come to my boot camp, we do a weekly planning process. And one of the pieces of that is celebrating anything you got done the previous week, because it's so freaking important. And if you go to Rod's Links, if you can't come to the boot camp, go to Rod's Links, do my goal setting workshop. At the end of that, I also do that weekly planning process, about 15 minutes. It's how I manage 2 large companies at the same time. And it's a very, very powerful process. But anyway, so It's never about the goals, but you got to have them. But the big thing that was going on was I was totally focused on me. Rod. Show the world I'm good enough. Show the world I matter. And that's the year I went and saw Tony Robbins, because I went and bought some books. I'm like, man, I got to get this back. I'm like, I didn't want to go sit on a couch and talk to a therapist at the time. And so I got these books, and one of them was Tony. So I went and saw him live 23 years ago in Fort Lauderdale. And I found out that he fed families for the holidays. And I was like, what a concept, do something for someone else. I'm embarrassed to say I had to be 40 to get that memo. And so I went home and I called my brother who lived in Denver. And I'm like, bro, let's feed 5 families, because I was going to go visit him for Thanksgiving. And so he called his church, found 5 families that really needed help. And we got food and frozen turkeys and toys for the kids. We had a lot of fun buying this stuff. And then the third family changed my life, guys. I go up to this door, and it was a row, like a row of 4 units, and they were 1 bedroom. They were crappy 1-bedroom units, because you had to walk through the bedroom to get to the kitchen, which had the bathroom off it. There was a woman in one of these crappy 1 bedrooms with 5 kids, Hispanic woman. This is in Denver. And she comes out and she sees all this stuff on the porch, and she starts crying. And her kids come out, and 2 of the older ones start crying. And then, of course, I start crying. And I was hooked. And I'm blessed to say, in the last 23 years, we've fed somewhere between 130 and 140,000 children here in Sarasota and Bradenton, Florida. We've done tens of thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies. We're doing 1,700 or 1,800 backpacks literally in 2 weeks. We've done tens of thousands of teddy bears to give local police departments for officers to put in their vehicles they encounter a child that's been traumatized. And I don't say this to brag, okay? There's a message in this. See, we've been taught to achieve to be happy. Like, we shouldn't be happy until we've achieved. But I'm going to tell you, and I know it's a play on words, but it's an important one. If you give back in any fashion, you'll be happily achieving. See, Tony Robbins calls it the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment. Achievement's a science, okay? You want to learn multifamily, get your butt to my boot camp. I'll give you the map and the blueprint. You just got to do it, okay? That's it. It's a science. But fulfillment is an art. You got to figure out what juices you. For me, it's kids. Maybe for you, it's animals or the environment or the elderly, whatever it is. Give back right now. Don't say to yourself, oh, you had money, that's why you gave back. You want the money, it comes faster when you give back. That's the way God works, or the universe. Whatever you believe, whatever you give, you receive. And so give back right now, even if it's just of your time. The success will come faster. You'll be fulfilled and you'll be happy.
I love that, Rod. So like one question before we're going to head into the final part of the show, but like how much is enough, right? Like when are you good? When do you kind of put it all away? Yeah,
dude, it's not about money. It's not about money for me anymore. I've got all the stupid crap. I've got $1 million worth of watches, and I mean, just stupid. I got it all back, and it's not about that anymore. It's about I get so much pleasure out of the love I get, and my students are killing it, and so. Like I said, I get love. I mean, that's why I'm so passionate about it. I freaking love it. I never planned to do this. Like I said, you want to make God laugh, you tell him your plans. I just wanted to do real estate, but I love this part more than the real estate. I've got a whole team. We are gearing up to massively buy, but it's hard for me to imagine retiring. I mean, one of the exercises we do at the boot camp is I have you write out your ideal day from the minute you get up to the minute you go to bed, and everything that you would do if life was freaking perfect, because it's just one of those things that draws you into it, right? And so, for me, it would be, work in this business for a couple hours, spending time with the person I love, whoever it is at that point. Spending some time with my kids who are, they're older, working on my foundation. I formed that foundation, like I said, and just enjoying life and just things like that. So
no, and I didn't mean that saying like, you're working for the money and all that, but I just think a lot of people get caught up in the wrong things, and they find themselves slaving away for 30, 40 years just to find themselves unhappy. And I think it's important.
They're afraid to get uncomfortable. They're afraid. Tony Robbins says the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of discomfort you can take. And so, they're caught in a rat race, and they're not happy with what they are, but they're afraid to actually do something. I can tell you, I've got scores of students that have retired from very high paying jobs with families, with kids, consuming jobs that did this on the side, and you can too, whether it's multifamily or not. Pick a side hustle and go do it. Don't be in the same place you are right now 2 years from now, unless you freaking love where you are right now. Go make something happen. Grind for a few years like most people won't, so you can live the rest of your life like most people can't. And if there were ever a time, it's right freaking now.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. All right, Rod, we're coming up kind of here on our time. We're going to get into the final part of our show, which is called,
The
you ready, Allie?
The
final
four.
four. Yeah, Allie, kick us off.
Dorky might be an operative word there as well, but never mind.
Dorky. We like dorky and janky.
Question number 1. What book are you reading right now?
All right, I'll do better than that. So my love language is gifts, okay? You know, the 5 love languages books. If you haven't read that, get it. I was blessed to have the author on my show because I've given away thousands of his books. But so let me give you some of the books that I give my students when they become a coaching student. One of them is The Slight Edge. It's about those little decisions you make every day that traject your life up or down. They don't mean much that day, but over time, they traject your life up or down. Another one is a book called Turning Pro by Stephen Pressman. It's about stop being a freaking amateur, put on your professional hat and become a professional. Another one is Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning. I was blessed to have him on the show, beautiful human being, about what you do in the morning to set your day off right. Gary Keller, The One Thing. I had his co-author, Jay Papasan, on the show. Fantastic book. Yeah, there's a few.
Love it.
Love it. You've given a lot of advice on the show, but what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I'll give you a quote that I love to live by, which is Tony's. I reference Tony a lot. I spent 20 years with him, so he gets a lot of free advertisement from me, and it's live with passion. I love that quote.
Love it. Yeah, you can hear it in your voice too.
Question number 3. What's your why? Why are you doing all this?
Well, I used to say it was my wife, now my stepwife, but not stepwife, ex-wife. I don't even know the term yet because it's fairly recent, but I love her to death and we're great friends. But that's what I used to say. And I think maybe it's partly will still be that way. But, you know, I am looking at life through a lifestyle filter. I literally have 3 cruises scheduled over the next 8 months, 2 in Europe. And I do love that. Oh gosh, you know, I need to reassociate with that why, honestly. It's time for me to reassociate, especially with this big life change with my personal relationship. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, last question. This is random. What's the most embarrassing thing you've ever done while trying to impress someone?
That's really funny. That triggered a memory I have not had for probably probably 45 years. Okay. I remember I was on a date with this girl that I had the biggest crush on, and I couldn't believe that she was with me. And we were at dinner, and I don't know, this is not that embarrassing, but it was for me at the time. She folded up a piece of paper and put it on the table. And I didn't realize she put gum in it, okay? And so I grabbed it, and I'm like, what's going on? I unfolded it to find the gum in there. And it doesn't sound like much, but I felt like such a freaking moron for doing. I know that sounds stupid, but I don't know why that popped in my head. Anyway, so.
That's funny. No, you thought she was passing you a note or something?
I didn't know what it was, but I was trying to be all cool, and oh God, it's embarrassing.
Do you have that note on the floor behind you?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I just feel like you're pulling everything from there. Awesome, Rod. Where can people find out more about you if they wanted to follow you, follow your podcast, follow your story?
Yeah, Rod's Links. Just go to Rod's Links or text links to 72345. There's all sorts of free resources there. My bootcamp site is there. Remember to use the code Ollie, and I got to remember to tell my team that. And it's ALI, right?
ALI. Yep. Pronounced Allie, actually, or for Alexandra.
Oh, no kidding. That's my daughter's name, Brittany Alexandra. Wow. Anyway,
nice.
Yeah, Rod's Links, use that code and you can come for $197. It's truly a no-brainer if you can make it. And a lot of free books there, free resources there. My podcast link is there. By the way, I do a clip every week called Own Your Power, and it's motivational. And there are hundreds of them there. You give me 5 minutes a week, you listen to that, and I promise you'll be juiced. So, because I love them. I love talking about mindset and psychology and all that. Anyway, guys, this is a real pleasure. I enjoyed spending some time with you.
So did we. Thank you so much, Rod.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Rod. It was great to hear some of your wisdom. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. All right, take care. Thanks.
All right, see you now. And that was Rod Khleif. Allie, what'd you think of Mr. Rod?
So many good takeaways. Like everything that he said was quotable and tweetable. It was perfect. I loved it.
I feel like he almost talked in quotes, right? I mean, you probably could run down a list of like 15, 20 Tony Robbins quotes and all that stuff that he said throughout the episode. And honestly, all those quotes are quotes. Like, I've been reading books for years now. Like, and in the beginning, I was reading 50, 60 books a year. And like those quotes are what got me from doing nothing to doing something. Allie, how about you? Like, Did those inspire you at all?
Oh yeah, I have a note on my iPhone where whenever I hear something like a quote that really speaks to me, I put it like on this note. So whenever I want to, I don't know, either go through my goals again or change my goals or just having a bad day, like I look at those quotes and it like super helps me. I feel like this podcast, I'm gonna take away like at least 50. They were all so good. The one that stuck out to me the most, and I can't paraphrase it, but basically what he was saying is how the goal is not something to actually strive toward. It's and people say this all the time, like happiness is in the journey, and like that it's taken a long time, and I'm still like processing that as well, because I just recently achieved a goal and I was happy for like maybe 2 minutes, and then it was like, what's next? So like it shouldn't ever be about the end goal. It really is about having fun and enjoying your life along the way.
Totally. I totally agree. And I think like that's a big part of the journey. Like I remember when I was living behind the curtain, right? That thought was in my head a lot. It's like, I need to enjoy this part, right? Like it wasn't fun sleeping behind the curtain. It wasn't fun sleeping on an uncomfortable bed for a year, but I knew that was for something greater. And that is a big part of the story now, right? And so I think like, yeah, every step of the way, there's a journey. And yeah, just live it and love it. One thing that I liked that he said, and I had heard something similar to this before, but it was kind of the analogy he had about the car and the headlights. And he's like, when you're driving a car 70 miles an hour down in a rainstorm, right? You can only see 5 to 10 feet ahead of you, but you're still confident that road is in front of you and you know the way to go because people have done it before. Well, it's no different, right? No different in real estate, no different in multifamily, no different if you wanted to scale, and no different if you wanted to hold back, right? So yeah, I that one is what resonated the most with me.
Yeah, that was a good one. This was a great episode. And so if you haven't already shared this with someone, please do, and rate and review this one. This one's going to be great.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, definitely give us a rating and review if you like what you're hearing. If you want to follow me and Allie's story a little bit more, follow us on Instagram. Allie is Allie the Agent. I'm the Fi Guy, and we'll see you guys all next week.
That's it for this episode of Investify. We hope that these nuggets of real estate wisdom lead to more savvy financial planning and a clearer path towards financial freedom. For more content like this, subscribe to the show at investify.com. Don't forget to leave a rating and share it with your friends. Together, we can transform more real estate newbies into successful and clever investors. Thank you so much for listening. See you on the next one.